And hey, Buffalo George, how are
Hello,
you?
Buffalo brother John. How are you?
Good,
How are you?
good.
How are you? How are you?
How are ya? I don't know if everybody out there saw it or not, but we have just produced a kind of a bird's eye view or an overview, a 30,000 foot view of kind of what the Buffalo talent looks like right now. We went through um, defense and special teams. Instead of doing a game by game analysis of who we think is going to win each game, we thought we'd go by the divisions or the sections of the team and just kind of look if we think we have more talent or less talent, and if that will result in a difference in wins.
Yeah. Last year we were an 11-5 team. Did we make enough changes on our offense, defense, and special teams to be a better team? Or are we about the same, or are we a little worse? And we thought between special teams, which was a little better, and defense, which was a little better, maybe we were a one game better team between those two. So instead of an 11-5 team, we might be a 12-4 team.
All right.
Or 11-6 team. Now
Right.
maybe we're a 12-5 team.
Yes, 12
Because
5.
we're doing 17 games now. Yeah.
All right. So that leaves us with the offense.
Right.
Overview of the offense. Do you have any thoughts there? And talent lost, talent gained?
Well, when you look at the quarterback room, we don't have Mitch Trubisky backing up our guy who was an recent NFL starter. But we still have some good heads in that room. But I think if Josh Allen goes down, there's a big drop off between our starting quarterback and our backup.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now, I don't think that's unusual in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. There is certainly the expectations would have to be adjusted if you have a different.
Yeah. So
Keenum has to play.
I think overall, then we are slightly worse in the quarterback room, and not for Josh Allen certainly, but looking at the room and saying to myself, you know, when you had Mitch Trubisky, he was playing against the same teams and the same players, and it was more talented than our current backup. At least that's my opinion. And so that if something happened to Allen, I felt confident in Trubisky taking over. If something happens to Allen this year, we have a whole different ball game, because our backup is not going to scramble like Josh Allen. He's not going to have the run threat like Josh Allen. He's not going to make these crazy throws that Allen could make. He can't throw at 117 miles an hour, you know.
Well, okay, so hold on, because I think I hear what you're saying, and you're not wrong. But really what we're comparing now is our backup quarterback last year to the backup quarterback this year.
Yes.
Neither of them really compare well to Josh Allen.
No.
But I think you're saying that last year we maybe had a guy whose production could be a little higher. Case Keenum is a career backup.
I felt if he came in, his strengths with the team that we had last year wouldn't be as much of a drop off as this year with the quarterback coming. Who's our backup quarterback again?
Case Keenum.
He's, he's a professional backup.
Yeah. I'm with you. He's quality. I'm certainly not upset to have him, but he is a professional backup. Yeah.
Look when we back in the Jim Kelly days, you had Frank Reich, and we all know what he did. And so I think the quarterback room in general is a little weaker. As long as Josh stays on his feet, then it's the same.
Right. This is the old, you hope you never get there.
That's a hope you never get here. But if we do, and eventually every team does, then I think that we're a little worse than it would be a little worse. I sure don't want to go into an AFC Championship game with Josh Allen on the sidelines.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay. Let's
And-
do what, you want to do running backs?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear your thought.
All right. Well, predominantly last year, Delvin Singletary and Zach Moss they're the only ones that from an offensive perspective, you really had to deal with, really had to consider.
Right.
And we still have them, but
Mhm.
they've made some very interesting additions
Right.
that could make the running back room, that running back position, quite valuable in the offense.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, more valuable than just as a blocker and the occasional runner. So they still have the ability to run when they want to run as much as they did last year. But the pass catchers in Cook and Johnson I think add a real another dimension to the offense that they almost certainly will exploit. And I'm looking forward to seeing it.
You know, Singletary had like 800 yards rushing last year. It's not like he didn't rush. On
No.
17 games, that's like 50 yards a game
Yeah.
in that
Yeah, that's right.
neighborhood. So it's not like we don't run the ball. And with Josh running the other 50 yards a game, we've got a 100-yard rushing team. But it's not the importance of this team. So and now we picked up two guys, Duke Johnson, who's really a third down specialist type of receiving running back.
Mhm.
And you drafted a kid, James Cook, Delvin Cook's little brother, who not only can run the ball, and he's more explosive when he gets an opening, which we've missed. Devin Singletary, nor Moss, either what I call the explosive. But he can be explosive if there's a seam. But he's a much, much better receiver, which will allow them the ability maybe to do more or better job with screenplays.
Yeah.
And he's also a running back. You can line up on the line and use him as a wide receiver. He's got that kind of
Yeah.
speed, and it's a totally different game.
Yeah.
You're not going to put. I remember Bill's putting Thurman Thomas on the line once in a while. Certainly not would Devin Singletary or Moss scare me by lining up on the receiving position. That wouldn't scare me if I was a defensive coordinator. But this kid out there, that could make you nervous.
Well, and I'll throw something at you here. There were times last year, many times, when they would go to 5 receiver sets, 5 on the line, and Singletary would be up there, that he would take a position. But you're right, it didn't scare a defense. It didn't force a defense to figure out they just put a linebacker out there.
Yeah.
You know, one of the linebackers would slide over, and that would be the person who's going to cover. Now they got to kind of think in terms of, are we using a safety to cover him? Are we bringing in a dime cornerback? How are we going to cover 5 wideouts when one of them is?
Yeah, if you got to bring a safety up or a nickel to cover the running back, how are you going to double Diggs or Gabe Davis? And what are you going to do with Dawson or OJ Howard coming off the line? You know,
Yeah, now they've got a problem. Their best linebacker cover person is probably Garden Knox. So Cooks gives you an issue.
Yes.
Then when you do that, now the Bills may not throw to Cook, but because you've had to adjust your defense, Diggs could be wide open.
That's right.
Gabe Davis
could be wide open, right?
Jameson.
And Davis seems to find himself open going into the end zone. How many times we see that?
Yeah.
And he's a huge upgrade over Emmanuel Sanders.
That could be.
Who, by the way, only because we're talking about 35-year-old Emmanuel Sanders, not 25.
Yeah. Emmanuel Sanders had a great career.
Yes.
So let's slide into the wide receiver room.
Well, we'll wrap up with the running backs is that I think there's a big upgrade. And I don't know if we're going to be running the ball more or using our running backs in a passing situation. But I think that now as a defense, you have to account for our running backs.
I agree. And I am willing to say that's a half game increase. Now, whether they'll realize that, yeah, you can't have 11 and a half wins, but that's enough of an increase that could help to make a difference in your total wins for the year.
Yeah.
Especially if Cooks actually, if he is actually a better runner,
Yes.
and they end up turning to him as kind of an every down back and handing him the ball, even if and taking carries away from Singletary, that there's a potential for an improvement there.
Mhm.
Now, it may not realize itself, but there is potential for improvement there. And that 800 yards could turn into 1,000 yards on the ground,
Right.
1,100 yards on the ground. Now, so we'll see. There's possibility there, but just strictly in the, if I really felt that they were going to get more running production out of him too, I'm talking a full game. But the
Mhm.
running back room, I think, has been improved.
Yes.
It's more explosive when Cooks, but it's more dynamic now with Johnson as well. So their willingness to throw to the running backs and their ability to make plays out of that position, I think, has gone way up.
And I'm also excited that it may take running yards away from Josh Allen, and which is fantastic. He
As
can
far
use
as
it.
keeping him healthy,
Yes,
that's
exactly.
what that did. Yeah,
I
'cause
mean,
he's
I
a
can
great runner.
understand like if it's a call play or if he's got to scramble, he can do it. But that's okay. But when he has to scramble all the time and is the only one that can pick up yardage running, you're risking your starting
Yeah.
quarterback. And out of everybody on the team, he's the last guy that we could lose.
Okay, we're of like minds there.
Yeah.
All right, wide receiver room.
Well, wide receiver. So I jumped the box there and saying that Gabe Davis as a number 2 wide receiver is a big upgrade over what we had in John Brown, who was a small guy, or Emmanuel Sanders, who was at the end of his career. So just having Gabe Davis out there all the time is a huge upgrade. Diggs is the same. You look at when you got the slot position, we lost Beasley. I liked Beasley for what he did to get the Bills to the playoff hump, but he's a guy that he was a wily veteran. He was able to get enough yardage and catch the ball at the spot of the first down and go down. You know, he was tackled when he caught the ball, but he always seemed to catch it at the first down marker. And he's a wily veteran. He got him a lot of first downs, and he did a good job. But he wasn't much for yards after catch. I think Jamison Crowder is better at that. Jamison Crowder, also a wily veteran, a great receiver. I don't see a drop off by losing Beasley. I don't know if I see an increase with Crowder, but I certainly don't see a drop off. And then you've got Isaiah McKenzie, who's still there. He can do your gadget plays. And Isaiah McKenzie showed, like in that New England game, if you don't want to pay attention to him, he will catch passes all day long.
Yeah, he'll bring.
And then you've got the new kid, Shakar, who is a speedster. And if you put him in the slot, he's a guy that's going to get yaks. If Josh Allen can hit him on the run, he's not going down at the first yard marker. He can make people miss. He's got the speed to break it all away. And I see that as a plus, even if he doesn't have as much as I'd like to see I don't know how much we're going to see him this year as a rookie behind Crowder and Isaiah McKenzie, but I think we're going to see him. And I think that he's going to be a better backup than McKenzie was as a backup to Beasley.
Oh, okay. I'm not arguing. Okay, so Stephon Diggs is still the alpha dog.
Yeah.
Right, he's still the alpha dog.
Yeah, I don't see any drop off. I don't see any increase. I just see maybe if there's so many more receiving weapons, that could make Diggs more dangerous because they could leave him more one-on-ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they have, and that could be an increase, but because they have to account for all these receiving weapons. But in general, I think that the receiving room is a big plus.
I saw CBS Sports put out a little video yesterday or the day before, and I apologize, I don't remember the name of the analyst, but he was very high on Jameson Crowder in this offense.
Mhm.
He's like, can you imagine giving a guy last year Beasley had 100 receptions or
Right.
100 targets.
Right.
Could you imagine how good Crowder would be, what he could do with 100 targets?
Yeah.
Now, okay, yeah, I'm with you there. So there's potential there. I really did like Beasley.
Yeah, I think you're going to
really
be
did like
shocked at. I think you're going to be shocked how much you like Jamison Crowder, and I don't know how long we have him. If it's a 1-year deal or 2-year deal, and you got a guy like Shakar that's a rookie. It's probably the replacement, whether it's 1 year or 2 years from now. And I think for this year, you still have a wily veteran, and that's slot position. And I think he's better than Beasley for what Beasley did for us was great. I think Crowder will be more explosive and able to move the ball after the catch better than Beasley did.
So I think our rookie, I don't want to mess up his name.
Khalil Shakir.
Shakir. All right. I think our rookie has a real chance of making the 53-man roster.
Yeah.
He offers one thing, like he's a rookie. He's got to go out there and demonstrate that he can catch the ball, an NFL ball in a game. He's got to do all those things.
Right.
But the speed that he offers may help him make this team. I think the team will not, like they'll show him all the wide receivers positions like they did with Gabe Davis, even though he doesn't have the size of Davis. And as such, he may find that he's out there quite a bit this year as an actual wideout and not a slot guy.
Yes, that's certainly possible.
That might be where he can contribute right now while he's continuing to learn and prove himself. And next year, when Mr. Crowder is gone, he might assume that slot position, which might be a more natural fit for him.
Right.
But he could help the team at the X position, the Y. He could help them at different spots. But there's assumptions when you talk about rookie. Will they pick up the playbook, and will they be able to produce, and will they actually be able to wrap their hands around the ball and hold on to it? All things to be proved. Whether or not, like, will they be able to protect him a bit from cornerbacks that like to be physical? He's not used to that, and we don't know how he'll respond to that right now. So there's some stuff but there's a real chance for him to make this team.
Right. And don't forget, I didn't mention Marquez Stevenson. We still have him on the team.
Also, speedy fellow. That's right.
Speedy fellow. And even if we just use him on special teams as the punt and kickoff returner, he's passed his rookie year. The butterflies are out of his stomach now. I think we're going to see him be more comfortable and ready to contribute. And you can't pass up touchdown Jesus.
You can't overlook touchdown Jesus.
Can't overlook touchdown Jesus. And he may be a backup to the backup, but at least we got a wily veteran, and we got him, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't have him, and that makes me happy.
There you go. All right. So I will say this. I went back and looked at the last 4 games of the regular season. I looked at the playoffs again a little bit. And yeah, I think you're right as far as I think Gabe Davis is ready to assume that starting position. And there's a real possibility that he'll get all the targets that Emmanuel Sanders got last year. And he may earn himself some more.
Yes,
additional ones that Sanders simply was out there and for whatever reason, Josh passed at him. Not passed to him, but passed on him and went to somebody else. Gabe Davis may be able to command more targets, and there's a real possibility there. That's where I see the best possibility for improvement in the wide receiver room,
okay,
and that Diggs hasn't had a running mate on the other side.
yeah,
Hopefully as good as Gabe Davis is going to be this year.
yeah. If Gabe Davis
he's
starts
been
getting that kind of attention, Diggs might find himself wide open. And, you know, I neglected to talk about Isaiah Hodgins. We've got him the same year we drafted Gabe Davis. He was hurt the first year. Last year, we didn't see much. So we really don't know much about him.
He struggled to get off the practice squad. That's right.
Yeah. So we'll find out.
When they've
no
had
disrespect to him, we just haven't
Right.
seen him much. We just don't know his ability.
when they've had injuries or they've had to pull people from the practice squad or whatnot, they seem to prefer touchdown Jesus. And maybe that's because he also pulls special teams duties.
Mhm.
And so they're kind of saving that roster spot. But look, just as Gabe Davis has a chance to be something now and really show what he could do, Hodges this is a make it year for him.
Yes, I would think so.
He's got to enter training camp with the expectation that he's going to win a starting position, win a 53-man roster spot, not a starting position, or there's a real chance he could get caught. And now he's
Yeah.
looking for another team.
Yeah, and when you start looking about all the wide receivers we have, he's got to really move up the chart.
I do think one thing that I will be looking for post June 1st,
Mhm.
and also during training camp, be very interesting if they bring in another wide receiver, if they bring in a veteran.
Mhm.
That could be an indication that they're not as high on Gabe, or an indication that they feel there's a spot behind the starters that they could have some improvement there. Like
Maybe the drop off between the starters to the rookies may be too great, and they might want another veteran in there.
yeah, if
They're
Hodge
not
doesn't step
confident
up
that,
or Khalil,
touchdown Jesus is it, you know? Yeah, okay, I understand.
yeah. So that there's or they find like maybe they really do like their rookie, but they're realizing, yeah, no, he's really a slot guy at this level,
Mhm.
and we still need somebody to back up our wideouts.
Right.
Well, I don't know what that looks like, but I'd be very interesting to see if they start scouring the free agent market. That could be an indication of something. We just have to wait and see.
I'm interested to see during the preseason if they use Shakar to do punt or kick
Me
returns
too.
and threatens Marquez Stevenson's position,
Too.
which would then open a position for somebody else.
Yeah, me too. Well, Marquez Stevens spent a lot of time on practice squad last year.
Right.
So they found a way to get him into a couple of get him on the 53-man roster, get him dressed, and get him into a couple of games by the end of the season. But they didn't feel comfortable using him in the playoffs.
Right.
So then that's fine. We'll have to see what that looks like. They love competition, right? So like,
Mhm.
great, let's get them on the field and see what they all can do when they're competing for that same spot. That's fine. That's part of the beauty of football. You talked about a big game. So I'm going to say the wide receiver room is a half a game better.
Okay.
So between our defense from last video saying that we're a game better,
Mhm.
and now I'm up to a half a game increase for the running backs and a half a game increase for the wide receivers. I'm up to 2-game improvement for this team.
You didn't even talk about the offensive line
We haven't gotten the offensive
or
line
the
yet.
tight ends.
All right. So,
I mean-
George,
Mhm.
I need to pause for a moment.
Okay.
One